The massive hegemony ship entered Earth's orbit silently, its dark hull reflecting the sun's light as it positioned itself above the North American continent. On screens across the planet, humans watched with a mixture of fear and wonder. After decades of searching the stars for signs of intelligent life, the aliens had finally arrived. Captain Alex Summers stood straight in his freshly pressed uniform, trying to control his breathing as the transport shuttle carried him and 5 other representatives toward the alien vessel. As the head of Earth's United Defense Coalition's First Contact Division, he had trained for this moment his entire career, but nothing could truly prepare anyone for humanity's first meeting with extraterrestrial intelligence. 2 minutes to docking, the pilot announced. Beside Alex, Dr. Linda Reeves checked her translator device one final time. The preliminary language analysis should work, she whispered. Their initial transmissions gave us enough to build a functional algorithm. Alex nodded, but remained silent. Something about this encounter had been bothering him since the hegemony announced their arrival 3 days ago. They had simply appeared at the edge of the solar system, broadcasted their intentions to establish diplomatic relations, and proceeded directly to Earth without waiting for a response. It suggested either incredible confidence or something else entirely. The shuttle shuddered slightly as it connected with the alien ship's docking bay. A soft hiss indicated pressure equalization. "Remember the protocols," Alex told his team as the door slid open. "No sudden movements. Follow my lead." They floated through the docking tube into an enormous chamber where gravity suddenly took hold, causing several team members to stumble. The room was filled with a pale blue light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. 3 tall figures waited for them. The aliens stood nearly 8 feet tall, with slender bodies covered in what appeared to be some kind of metallic armor. Their faces remained hidden behind smooth, featureless masks. The central figure stepped forward. "I am High Lord Zextuer of the Galactic Hegemony. We welcome Earth to the civilized stars." The voice came through the translator with an odd musical quality. Alex performed the practiced bow. "Captain Alex Summers of Earth's United Defense Coalition. We are honored by your presence and eager to establish peaceful relations." The alien made a gesture that might have been amusement. "Of course, all species say the same when we first arrive. Come, we have prepared suitable accommodations for discussions." The human delegation followed the 3 aliens through corridors that seemed to shift and change as they walked. Eventually, they entered a large circular room with a table formed from what looked like flowing water somehow held in perfect shape. Once seated, High Lord Zextuer activated a projection in the center of the table. A 3-dimensional map of the galaxy appeared with thousands of stars highlighted in various colors. The hegemony spans 63,000 worlds across 3 spiral arms of this galaxy, the alien explained. "For 12,000 years we have brought order and civilization to primitive species such as yourselves." Dr. Reeves leaned forward. "We're eager to learn from your advanced culture. What sort of exchange programs might be possible?" "Exchange?" The alien's translator conveyed something like surprise. "Perhaps you misunderstand. We are not here to exchange anything. We are here to present the standard offering." The projection changed to show images of various alien worlds. "These are the terms extended to all species upon their discovery. The hegemony will provide protection from hostile forces in the galaxy. We will share limited technological information to improve your quality of life. In return, Earth will become a protected resource world of the hegemony, providing 40% of all mineral and biological resources extracted from your planet and solar system." Alex felt his stomach tighten. "And if we choose not to accept these terms?" "This is not a negotiation, Captain Summers. It is an explanation of how things will proceed." Back on Earth, Lieutenant Samantha Wright sat in the darkened communication center beneath the Pentagon, monitoring the diplomatic feed. As the youngest member of Earth's intelligence division, she had been assigned what everyone considered a boring task, running background analysis on the alien transmission signals, while the real work happened on the diplomatic front. "That's strange," she murmured, noticing a secondary signal embedded within the main communication stream between the alien ship and Earth's satellites. She isolated the signal and began decrypting it. As the translation appeared on her screen, her blood ran cold. These weren't diplomatic communications at all, but military directives. She read phrases like potentially unmanageable species and contingency plans for pacification, along with detailed analyses of Earth's defensive capabilities. Her fingers moved quickly across the console, establishing a secure connection to Captain Summers' personal communication device. On the hegemony ship, Alex felt his pocket vibrate. He carefully checked the message while Dr. Reeves asked questions about technological sharing. The color drained from his face as he read Samantha's warning. "Hi, Lord Zextour," Alex interrupted, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "It seems there's been a misunderstanding. Your ships are transmitting military assessments, not diplomatic protocols. Are we being evaluated for conquest rather than welcomed as equals?" The room fell silent. The alien's mask revealed nothing, but its posture stiffened. "Your species shows uncommon perceptiveness," Zextour finally said. "It changes nothing. Your acceptance was never a requirement, merely a courtesy." In that moment, alarms began blaring, both on the ship and through the communication devices. From orbit, 12 smaller hegemony vessels that had remained cloaked suddenly appeared, descending rapidly toward Earth's major military installations. "What are you doing?" Alex demanded, rising to his feet. "Ensuring compliance," the alien replied, calmly. "Standard procedure for species showing resistance tendencies." On screens across Earth, people watched in horror as the alien ships opened fire. Washington, D.C., Moscow, Beijing, and other military command centers erupted in flames as precision energy weapons struck from orbit. In the chaos that followed, Alex and his team were separated. Guards appeared, forcing them toward detention cells. But Alex had served in 3 war zones before joining the diplomatic corps. When a single guard attempted to restrain him, Alex broke free, surprising the alien with fighting skills it hadn't expected from what they considered a primitive species. He fought his way to a communication terminal, broadcasting an emergency. "Alert to Earth. This is Captain Summers. The hegemony has declared war. Their ships are targeting military command. This is not a diplomatic mission. It's an invasion." Alarms blared as he ran through the corridors following the emergency schematics Samantha had sent to his device. If he could reach the shuttle bay where a small hegemony scout ship was docked, he might escape with the intelligence they desperately needed. Behind him, alien guards fired weapons that scorched the walls. Ahead lay humanity's only hope. Not for victory in this initial battle, but for survival in the war that had just begun. A war against an empire that had never faced a species willing to burn their own worlds rather than surrender them. 3 months had passed since the hegemony's first attack. Earth burned. From the hidden underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, Commander Eric Phillips stared at the holographic display showing the planet's surface. Red dots covered nearly 70% of the map, marking areas under alien control. The blue areas representing free human territories shrank daily. "They've taken Buenos Aires," a tired officer reported. "That's the entire South American continent now under their control." Eric rubbed his eyes. He hadn't slept properly in days. The hegemony's ground forces moved with ruthless efficiency, using technology far beyond human capabilities. They're walking. Tanks could withstand direct hits from Earth's most powerful weapons, and their energy shields made most cities indefensible. "What's the status on the evacuation?" Eric asked. A woman with short gray hair stepped forward. This was Dr. Olivia Bennett, formerly NASA's head of colonization projects, now in charge of humanity's last hope. "We've loaded 17 colony ships, each can carry about 15,000 people. That's only a fraction of our population, but it's all we have time for." "It'll have to be enough," Eric said quietly. The door to the command center slid open. All eyes turned as a scarred man in a tattered uniform entered. Captain Alex Summers had somehow escaped the hegemony flagship 3 months ago, bringing with him crucial information about the invaders. His left arm was now a prosthetic replacement, and a jagged scar ran across his face, but his eyes burned with the same determination. "The Council has voted," Alex announced. "They've approved the Scorched Earth Protocol." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. Rather than allow Earth's resources to fall into hegemony hands, they would destroy them completely. There must be another way, Eric argued. We're talking about our home. Our home is already lost, Alex replied, his voice heavy with grief. The question now is whether we let them take it and become stronger, or deny them what they came for. Doctor, Bennett pulled up new projections on the main screen. Based on the data Captain Summers brought back, we've identified the resources the hegemony values most. They're particularly interested in our rare earth elements, uranium deposits, and fresh water. We've plotted the locations of all major deposits. The screen showed hundreds of points scattered across Earth's continents and oceans. We've placed fusion devices at each location, she continued. The simultaneous detonation will render the resources unusable and create enough atmospheric disruption to make planet-side operations impossible for at least a decade. Eric shook his head. We're destroying our own planet. We're denying it. To them, Alex corrected. And we're buying time for those who can escape. In another section of the underground facility, Lieutenant Samantha Wright worked with a team of engineers preparing the colony ships. These vessels had originally been designed for Mars colonization, not deep space travel. But with modifications, based on stolen hegemony technology that Alex had brought back, they might just be capable of reaching distant star systems. Lieutenant, we've got a problem with the power core on Ship 12, an engineer called out. Samantha hurried over. Show me. As she worked, she thought about the billions who would be left behind. The scorched Earth protocol would likely kill most of them, along with the hegemony forces, but the alternative was extinction or enslavement of the entire human race. At the main communications terminal, a young technician named Paul Garcia coordinated with resistance cells around the globe. These brave fighters would create diversions to keep the hegemony distracted while the colony ships launched. Oslo team is in position, Paul reported. Shanghai team reports heavy hegemony presence, but they're ready. Cairo team. He paused, his expression falling. Cairo team is not responding. Keep trying, Eric ordered. We need every diversion we can get. The final preparations moved forward. The plan was cunning in its simplicity. The colony ships would launch under the guise of a mass surrender. The hegemony, believing they were accepting Earth's capitulation, would allow the ships to approach their fleet in orbit. Then, while their attention was focused upward, the resistance fighters would launch simultaneous attacks around the globe, giving the colony ships the few precious minutes they needed to activate their faster-than-light drives and escape. As the hour approached, families said tearful goodbyes. Most of those selected for evacuation were leaving loved ones behind. Children cried as they were separated from parents who had volunteered to stay. Scientists, engineers, doctors, and others with skills needed for survival were prioritized, along with as many children as possible to ensure humanity's future. Dr. Bennett found Alex staring at a photograph of a woman and young boy. Your family? She asked gently. They were in Boston when the first attacks came, he replied, his voice hollow. I'm fighting for their memory now. The alarm signaled launch preparations. Everyone moved to their assigned positions. Dr. Bennett would lead the largest colony ship named New Dawn. Eric would remain in the command center to coordinate the ground defense and activate the Scorched Earth protocol once the ships were safely away. Good luck, Eric said as he shook Alex's hand. One final time, survive, Alex replied. Find a new home. On the surface, resistance fighters began their coordinated attacks. In what remained of New York, fighters detonated explosives near a hegemony processing center. In the ruins of Tokyo, a small team used stolen alien weapons to attack a patrol. Around the world, the last free humans launched what looked like desperate, uncoordinated attacks. The hegemony commanders saw these as the final throes of a defeated species. They diverted troops to crush these last pockets of resistance, not realizing they were being drawn away from the hidden launch sites. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, massive doors slid open, revealing 17 gleaming ships. One by one, they rose into the night sky. On the bridge of the New Dawn, Dr. Bennett watched Earth grow smaller below them. Beside her, Alex operated the communications system. "This is Colony Fleet to Hegemony Command," he transmitted. "We surrender. We carry Earth's remaining leadership and are prepared to negotiate terms." The Hegemony flagship responded immediately, directing the ships to approach for boarding, but as they neared the alien fleet, Alex sent a coded signal back to Earth. In the underground command center, Eric received the message. With a heavy heart, he activated the Scorched Earth protocol. He closed his eyes as he pressed the final confirmation. "Forgive us," he whispered. On the new dawn, alarms blared as massive energy spikes were detected across Earth's surface. The Hegemony ship suddenly broke formation, trying to move away from the planet. "Faster than light drives online," Samantha reported from her station. "Take us out of here," Dr. Bennett ordered. As the colony ships accelerated away, Earth erupted in apocalyptic fury. Hundreds of fusion devices detonated simultaneously, tearing the planet's crust apart. The Hegemony resource extraction ships, caught in the devastation, disintegrated in the shockwaves. From the viewing portal of the last ship to depart, the survivors watched their homeworld become a broken, burning monument to humanity's refusal to submit. 5 years had passed since Earth's destruction. The human colony of Haven existed inside a large asteroid in a distant star system. The asteroid's core had been hollowed out, creating space for nearly 20,000 survivors. Hidden sensors monitored the surrounding space for any sign of Hegemony ships. Jack Foster worked in his lab, surrounded by pieces of alien technology. His hands moved carefully as he connected wires inside what appeared to be a Hegemony communication device. At 43, Jack had once been a computer engineer on Earth. Now he was one of humanity's most valuable assets, someone who could understand and adapt alien technology. "Any progress?" Maria Foster asked as she entered the lab. Maria ran the colony's education center, teaching children born after Earth's destruction. Jack nodded without looking up. "I think I've figured out how their quantum communication works. If I'm right, we could talk to the other colonies without the Hegemony detecting the signals." Maria placed a hand on his shoulder. "The council meeting starts in 10 minutes. Don't be late again." "I won't," Jack promised, though they both knew he might lose track of time. The council chamber was one of the largest rooms in Haven. Originally designed as a storage area, it now served as a meeting place for the colony's leaders. 15 people sat around a table made from repurposed shuttle parts. Director Kate Powell, who had once been the mayor of a small town in Colorado, called the meeting to order. "We've received a transmission from the Defiance," she announced. "Captain Summers is returning to Haven. He should arrive within 2 days." Excited murmurs filled the room. The Defiance was the experimental scout ship that Captain Alex Summers had used to escape the Hegemony flagship during first contact. For 5 years, he had led a small crew on guerrilla missions against Hegemony supply lines, gathering intelligence and stealing technology. "Did the message say anything else?" Jack asked. "Only that he has important information," Kate replied. Maria looked concerned. "Is it safe for him to return? What if the Hegemony tracks him?" "The Defiance has the best stealth technology we've adapted," Jack reminded her. "And Alex is too careful to lead them to us." 2 days later, the entire colony buzzed with excitement as the Defiance docked in Haven's landing bay. Captain Alex Summers emerged from the ship, looking older and more weathered than when he had left 6 months earlier. A new scar crossed his right cheek, and his once dark hair now had streaks of gray. Behind him came his crew of 12, all that remained of his original team of 20. In the council chamber, Alex shared what he had learned. "The Hegemony is vulnerable," he explained, pointing to a star map projected on the wall. "They've expanded too quickly, trying to control thousands of worlds with a military that stretched thin." He zogled in on one sector. "Their supply lines are exposed here, here, and here," he continued, indicating several points. "More importantly, many of their subject worlds are growing restless. The species they control have heard what humans did, how we destroyed our own planet rather than submit." "How could they know about that?" someone asked. "We've been spreading the story," Alex replied with a grim smile. "Every time we hit a Hegemony outpost, we broadcast what happened to Earth. The story is becoming something of a legend among oppressed species. Jack leaned forward. What about the quantum communicator project I sent with you? Did it work? Alex nodded. Perfectly. We've established contact with the 3 other human colonies. New Terra has grown to 30,000 people. Sanctuary and Liberty are smaller but doing well. This was the first confirmation that other colony ships had survived. The room filled with applause and relieved laughter. Later that evening, Maria took Alex to see the education center. 20 children sat in a circle listening to a young teacher named Bella Chen. These children were all born here on Haven, Maria explained quietly. They've never seen a blue sky or felt real gravity outside our artificial system. Alex watched as Bella showed the children pictures of Earth, mountains, oceans, forests, and cities, as they had been before the hegemony came. We teach them about Earth, Maria continued, but we also teach them why we had to leave it behind. They need to understand both what we lost and why we made that choice. A small boy noticed them watching and approached. Are you Captain Summers? He asked, eyes. The one who fights the aliens? Alex knelt to the child's level. I am. What's your name? Ben, the boy replied. When I grow up, I want to fight aliens too. Alex's expression grew serious. I hope by then we won't need to fight anymore. That night, the colony's leaders gathered again. Alex showed them more of what he had discovered about the hegemony. Their empire spans 3 spiral arms of the galaxy, he explained. But many of their subject worlds provide resources only because they fear destruction. If those worlds saw a chance to break free. Director Powell nodded in understanding. You're suggesting we start a rebellion. Not just a rebellion, Alex corrected. A galactic uprising. We can't defeat the hegemony with direct force. They still have vastly superior numbers and technology. But we can show other species how to resist. Jack opened a case he had brought to the meeting. Inside lay a device about the size of a small book. This is a modified quantum entanglement communicator, he explained, based on hegemony technology, but completely undetectable by their scanning systems. We can use these to coordinate between colonies and eventually with other species who want to join the resistance. Kate looked troubled. What you're proposing would take years, maybe decades. Do we have anything better to do with our time? Alex asked quietly. Earth is gone. We can't bring it back. But we can make sure its destruction wasn't in vain. The Council voted to approve what they called Operation Wildfire, a long-term plan to spread rebellion throughout hegemony territory. They would share humanity's story, along with tactics and technology, with any species willing to resist. As the meeting ended, Alex found himself standing alone at a viewport looking out at the distant stars. Samantha Wright joined him, now a lieutenant commander and the Defiance's second-in-command. Do you ever wonder if we made the right choice? She asked. Destroying Earth? Alex was silent for a long moment. The hegemony thought we'd surrender, because no species would willingly destroy their homeworld. They thought we'd kneel rather than burn. He turned to face her. They were wrong about us, and that's the one advantage we have. They still don't understand what humans are willing to do for freedom. Throughout Haven, similar conversations took place as people prepared for bed. They were the last embers of humanity, scattered across distant stars. But embers, when fanned by the winds of resistance, could ignite into a blaze that not even an empire could extinguish. 10 years had passed since Earth became a burning symbol of humanity's defiance. On the hegemony core world of Vexus Prime, Security Director Cal Moore strode through the gleaming halls of the Central Command Tower. His long, thin body moved with the natural grace of his species, but tension showed in the stiffness of his neck tendrils. Cal Moore entered the High Council chamber, where 5 other hegemony leaders waited. The room fell silent as he placed a data crystal on the central table. A holographic display appeared, showing a map of hegemony territory with red dots scattered across hundreds of worlds. The human resistance has grown beyond our initial estimates, Cal Moore reported, his voice clicking with stress harmonics. We have confirmed rebellions on 117 worlds, another 300 show signs of unrest. High Lord. Zexatur, now older but still commanding, studied the display. How has such a small group of survivors caused this much disruption? They share their technology and tactics with other species, Calmore explained. Most concerning is their willingness to destroy valuable resources rather than let us claim them. On the agricultural world of Tyrannus III, Hegemony Commander Vexnar watched from orbit as riots spread through the main food processing centers. The furry six-limbed natives had been peaceful servants for centuries. Now they burned their own crops and attacked Hegemony collection ships. Enough, Vexnar decided. Implement standard pacification protocol. His second-in-command hesitated. Sir, we've received reports that the rebels have placed devices similar to those the humans used on their homeworld. Vexnar dismissed this concern. The humans had access to fusion technology. These primitives can barely create combustion engines. Begin the bombardment. 5 hegemony warships moved into position above the largest population centers. Energy weapons charged, then fired brilliant beams toward the surface. But instead of submission, they received destruction. The planet's surface erupted in a series of massive explosions that reached into the atmosphere, engulfing 3 of the hegemony ships. Impossible! Vexnar shouted as his flagship rocked from the shockwave. Emergency alarms blared as the ship's systems failed. His last sight before the viewing screen went dark was the agricultural world breaking apart beneath him. In a hidden base on the jungle moon of Kalarath, Adam Carter watched the destruction of Tyrannus III on a stolen hegemony communication device. At 35, Adam had spent half his life fighting the hegemony. His right eye had been replaced with a cybernetic implant after an injury during a raid 3 years earlier. It worked, he said quietly to the gathered representatives from 7 different alien species. Just as we showed them, a tall insectoid being clicked its mandibles. They destroyed their entire world to resist the hegemony. So many lives lost. They evacuated most of their people first, Adam explained. The Tyrannus had been preparing for this moment for 2 years, building underground shelters on their moons. What the hegemony saw as primitive, they saw as an advantage. The enemy underestimated them. News of what happened on Tyrannus III spread quickly through the quantum communication network the humans had established. On world after world, subject species began to reconsider their options. If the peaceful Tyrannus could strike such a blow against their oppressors, what might others accomplish? In the Haven colony, which had grown to over 40,000 people, Jack Foster worked with a team of engineers to improve their adaptation of hegemony technology. The colony now had its own shipyards, building vessels that combined human ingenuity with alien tech. The new drive system is ready for testing, his assistant reported. If it works, our ships will be faster than anything the hegemony has. Jack smiled. Schedule the test for tomorrow. I want to be there. Maria entered the workshop, bringing news from the council meeting. Alex's team has successfully infiltrated the hegemony database on Proxys 4. They've discovered something important. That evening, Captain Summers addressed the colony's leadership via quantum communication. His face, now lined and weathered from years of fighting, appeared on the main screen in the council chamber. We've confirmed what we suspected, he reported. The hegemony leadership isn't a coalition of species as they claim. They're a single hive-mind entity that has been manipulating thousands of client races against each other for millennia. Director Powell leaned forward. How does this help us? It gives us a target, Alex explained. Rather than fighting across thousands of worlds, we can focus on the central hive. More importantly, when we share this information with other species, it will destroy the hegemony's carefully constructed illusion of inclusive leadership. On the hegemony capital world, an artificial planet constructed over centuries, High Lord Zextor received disturbing news. The human resistance had somehow gained access to the Central Archive, the most secure database in hegemony territory. How did they penetrate our defenses? He demanded. The security officer trembled. We believe they had help from within, High Lord. Several Proxan technicians disappeared after the breach. Zextor's anger radiated through his pheromone glands, causing the officer to back away. Find the humans. find their colonies, destroy them completely. No more failures. But finding the human colonies proved nearly impossible. They remained hidden in asteroid belts, inside gas giant moons or beneath the oceans of seemingly uninhabitable worlds. More troubling for the hegemony was the growing number of species joining the resistance. On the water world of Aqualis, the native gill breathers shared their underwater cities with human refugees, creating shipyards safe from orbital detection. On the volcanic planet Ignorus, silicon-based life forms used their natural heat resistance to build weapons inside active volcanoes. The hegemony's response grew increasingly desperate. Entire worlds suspected of harboring rebels were destroyed. But this only strengthened the resistance. Each act of destruction became another story spread through the quantum network, another reason to fight rather than submit. 15 years after Earth's destruction, the first major hegemony military base fell to the combined forces of the resistance. The battle for Outpost Sigma 9 lasted 3 days, ending when the station commander activated the self-destruct rather than surrender. But before the station exploded, Adam Carter's team extracted critical information: the location of the hegemony's central hive mind. In a secure communication room on Haven, Adam shared the discovery with the leaders of all 4 human colonies and representatives from 22 alien species. The hive mind exists in a shielded chamber at the center of the capital world, he explained, displaying the schematics they had obtained. It's protected by defenses we can't hope to penetrate with direct force. Then how do we reach it? Asked the Aqualis representative, her translator converting wet gurgles to human speech. Adam smiled grimly. The same way we've accomplished everything else, by making them think we're doing something completely different. As the meeting concluded, Jack Foster approached Director Powell. We're ready to implement the final phase of Project Phoenix, he reported. She nodded solemnly. After all these years, it comes down to this. Are you sure it will work? As sure as we can be, Jack replied. We've tested every component. The rest depends on whether the hegemony acts as we expect. That night, as Haven's artificial lights dimmed to simulate night, Samantha Wright stood in the memorial garden. Stone monuments honored Earth and those who had died fighting the hegemony. She placed her hand on the cool surface of the largest monument. We're almost there, she whispered. The fire we started is about to become an inferno. 20 years had passed since Earth's destruction. The hegemony, once the undisputed ruler of 3 spiral arms of the galaxy, now struggled to maintain control over its vast territories. Multiple sectors had declared independence, and those, still under hegemony rule, seethed with rebellion. Admiral Samantha Wright stood on the bridge of the Freedom, humanity's largest warship. Built in the hidden shipyards of Haven, it combined human creativity with adapted alien technology. Her once blonde hair was now streaked with gray, but her eyes remained sharp and determined. Beside her stood representatives from 12 different species, all members of what they called the Free Worlds Alliance. We're approaching the hegemony capital, the navigation officer reported. Their defense fleet is moving to intercept. Samantha nodded calmly. Send the message. Across the galaxy, on hundreds of worlds still under hegemony control, hidden resistance cells received the signal through quantum communicators. It was time for the final phase of Operation Wildfire. On the artificial world that served as the hegemony's capital, High Lord Zextur watched with growing concern as reports of simultaneous uprisings flooded in from across his shrinking empire. For the first time in the 12,000-year history of the hegemony, the Central Authority faced a coordinated attack on multiple fronts. How is this possible? He demanded of his advisors. How can so many worlds rebel at once? No one had an answer that satisfied him. The hegemony had always maintained control by keeping subject species isolated from each other, encouraging competition and distrust. But somehow the humans had united them. A junior communications officer approached, nervously. High Lord, the human fleet requests your presence for negotiation. They say they come to discuss terms. Zextur's neck tendrils stiffened with outrage. They dare to offer terms to the hegemony. We do not negotiate with primitives. Despite his words, the situation was dire. Nearly half of the hegemony defense fleet had been diverted to quell rebellions on critical resource worlds. The remaining ships were outnumbered by the combined Alliance fleet. "Prepare my shuttle," Zextor ordered. "I will meet these humans and remind them of their place." On the neutral space station orbiting the capital world, Samantha waited in the grand conference chamber. The walls were decorated with symbols of hegemony power, images of conquered worlds and subjugated species. She wore a simple uniform with only a small Earth emblem on her shoulder. The doors slid open, and High Lord Zextor entered, flanked by guards. He had aged since the day he first spoke to Captain Summers on Earth, but he carried himself with the same arrogant confidence. "I remember you," he said, his translator conveying a tone of mild surprise. "You were a junior officer when we first encountered your species. Lieutenant Wright, was it not?" "Admiral Wright now," Samantha corrected. "Things have changed in 20 years. "Some things never change," Zextor replied, taking his seat at the head of the table as if it were his. "Right. The hegemony has ruled this galaxy for 12,000 years. We will continue to do so long after your rebellion is crushed." Samantha allowed herself a small smile. "That brings us to the purpose of this meeting." She activated a holographic display in the center of the table showing hundreds of worlds with human operatives in place. "We didn't come to surrender, High Lord. We came to accept yours." Zextor's neck tendrils flared with anger. "The hegemony does not surrender." "Then, the hegemony will burn," Samantha said simply. Just as Earth did, she touched a control, and the holographic display changed, showing footage from Tyrannus 3 and a dozen other worlds where the inhabitants had destroyed their own planets rather than submit to hegemony rule. "Every world on this map has human-trained operatives in place," she explained, "all prepared to trigger similar destruction if needed. Your empire isn't just being defeated, High Lord, it's being dismantled." For the first time, uncertainty showed in Zextor's posture. Why? Why would so many species risk everything? Why would they destroy their own worlds? "Because you never understood what freedom means to us," Samantha answered. "You thought we would kneel because the alternative was destruction. But we showed the galaxy that some things are worth burning for." In orbit around the capital, the combined fleet of the Alliance held position. On the bridge of the Freedom, Jack Foster monitored communications. Now in his 60s, he had dedicated his life to adapting hegemony technology for human use. Beside him stood his wife Maria and their son Ben, now a young man of 25 who had never seen Earth. "The Admiral has made contact," Jack reported. "Phase 1 complete." Maria squeezed his hand. "Do you think they'll surrender?" "They might," Jack replied. "But it doesn't matter. Either way, this ends today." Below the artificial surface of the capital world, Adam Carter led a team of infiltrators through maintenance tunnels. His cybernetic eye glowed faintly in the darkness, scanning for security measures. 20 years of fighting had left him with numerous scars and mechanical parts, but his determination remained undiminished. "We're approaching the central chamber," he whispered into his communicator. "Ready to implement Phase 2. His team carried the most important weapon in their arsenal, not bombs or guns, but truth. They had reached the central broadcasting system of the hegemony, from which all official communications were transmitted across the empire. In the conference chamber, Zextor finally spoke. "What are your terms?" Before Samantha could answer, the holographic display changed. To Zextor's horror, it showed the secret central chamber of the capital, the place where the true rulers of the hegemony dwelled. Unlike the humanoid forms they projected to their subjects, the actual hegemony leaders were a collective of interconnected organisms, a single hive mind that had evolved to manipulate other species. For 12,000 years they had kept this secret, presenting themselves as a coalition of different races working together. "This broadcast is going to every world. In your empire," Samantha told him. "Your subjects are seeing the truth for the first time, across the galaxy, on thousands of worlds. Beings of all species watched as the lies that had bound them for millennia unraveled. The hegemony wasn't a benevolent coalition. It was a parasite that had fed on their resources and labor while keeping them divided. On New Terra, humanity's largest colony world, Dr. Olivia Bennett watched the broadcast with tears in her eyes. Now elderly, she had lived to see the culmination of the resistance she had helped create when Earth fell. Beside her stood Captain Alex Summers, his body aged and battle-worn but his eyes bright with vindication. "It's done," he said quietly. 3 days later, on the steps of the former Hegemony Central Command, representatives from hundreds of formerly subjugated worlds gathered. The Hegemony leadership, their true form now exposed, had been contained. Their empire had collapsed not through total destruction, but through truth. Samantha Wright, as Admiral of the Alliance Fleet, signed the document that formally established the Free Worlds Congress, a new organization based on mutual respect and cooperation rather than domination. That evening, on New Terra, a solemn ceremony took place. Families gathered around monuments to Earth, remembering the homeworld none of the children had ever seen. Dr. Bennett, now using a hovering chair to move, addressed a group of children. "Earth wasn't destroyed because humans were violent or cruel," she explained, her voice thin but clear. "It was destroyed because we understood something the hegemony never could. True freedom means being willing to sacrifice everything rather than live in chains." In orbit above New Terra, ships from dozens of formerly subjugated species arrived for the first official meeting of the Free Worlds Congress. Among them was a small vessel carrying a seedling grown from the last tree to leave Earth before its destruction. This symbol of rebirth would be planted in New Terra's soil, a reminder that even after the greatest loss, life and freedom could flourish again, and that no species should ever kneel before an empire.